One of LA's biggest unsolved crimes. Chris Pine is not so Pine, and don't go see Dr. Hodel ever.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome to I Am the Night After Show. We are talking all things I Am the Night. It aired tonight, but we are going into episode 1 and 2, so the pilot and the second episode for tonight. Lots to talk about this show. I am Jim Alexander, joined today by my co-host.
Hi guys, I'm Anna K. Thomas. So excited. I love this new show.
Me too. I mean, I'm excited that we finally got this together. I know it's kind of late in the process. The show's got, I think, one more week left.
But this is how we know we have super fans who are committed to watching this and learning more about the show. So this is exactly what
Better
it's all
late
about.
than never,
Exactly.
right? I mean, we're gonna catch up quick. We're gonna go over to 2 episodes. We're gonna go over to pilot tonight and episode 2, which was called Phenomenon of Interference, I believe. Lots of
very
interference in that one.
serious.
We're gonna start out with the overall thoughts on the show. What do you think about the show, Anna? Like, how did you get drawn into it, and what do you think of it?
Okay, I totally stumbled on this. I was one of those people that watched the Golden Globes because I'm a huge award show junkie, and they were promoting this nonstop. So throughout the entire show, I was like, Chris Pine, India Easley, like, what's going on here? And I watched it after, and I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be one of my new favorite shows, Hooked. And I love like true crime and like unsolved cases. And when I started doing research and seeing more about what this was about, I was like, this is really, really cool.
So you digged into the research. I found out about it. Actually, I was invited to go see the premiere screening of it. So that was kind of a cool
lucky.
thing. Yeah,
So
I wasn't
cool.
aware about the show. I just saw Patty Jenkins, Chris Pine.
Yep.
Those are some big
Big
names
names.
involved. And I went to it and I was blown away by it. I was like, I need to see this show. I saw the pilot. I need to watch every week. I need to talk about this show. So luckily, we were able to do this after show. What were, the pilot for me, it really just kept me at the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
There's one thing after another happening. Were you as taken back by the pilot as I was? I was like literally glued to it moment to moment. What was your initial impression of the pilot?
Oh, completely. I was the exact same, especially with like the dichotomy of Chris Pine's situation, his character, Jay, and then Pat, who we learn is Fauna. There's like so much mystery there. Her situation with the nunnery, and then her being mixed race. I didn't really catch on to that right away. I was like, what is going on?
Did you buy that initially? That was the thing.
mean-
I'm like, she
Do you
could
think the casting's
be,
good?
but I thought it was the casting. I mean, maybe she could play it out, but probably not. That was like my initial immediate
You'd be
reaction to
surprised.
it.
Like people that honestly, I'm actually kind of glad they went that way because like in the South, that was very common. You had very, very light-skinned African American people who happen to have blue eyes or hazel eyes or even green eyes, and so historically, that's definitely been sort of an underserved representation. So it's definitely interesting that they went that route. But I wonder if we're gonna learn more about her throughout the series that will explain that more.
This series definitely has a racial and cultural aspect and history of it noted. I think it's a big part of the show.
Definitely.
How do you feel about that? Kind of going back in time, and I feel like every week we learn and see things that it's almost, in a way, kind of documentarian-like, when you see that, and it's built into the storyline. What are your thoughts on that, watching that? Because I thought, for me, it really had it's significant in a lot of ways that they included that. It's important to the storyline of the show, but in general, watching that, kind of feeling and seeing the different race divides that were going on back then, and just the characters and how they took to it. What was your impression of that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was interesting that we landed in the show in the middle of her growing up. And she's stuck between these two worlds because she looks very white, but she's clearly not. But then the black community is not really accepting her either. She has a few friends that are, but there's always those jabs in there, like, oh, Pat, you're not really black, or you're not this. And so I think it's interesting that we are sort of dropped into her world as she's figuring out her own like sense of self.
Yeah, she's always kind of defending herself. No, I am. I have mixed parents, and no one's believing that. It must have been tough for her, even in that case, growing up.
And her mom, I mean, that to be grown up in that situation too, where you clearly feel like you're not really wanted, and then that adds to her own race confusions. Like, what do you think about her mom playing into her world and with the race
Well, that's the thing.
issues.
Did you initially guess that was a big twist in the first episode? For those of you, obviously, who've seen it, that was in her real mom. Did you know it from the start? As soon as the character was introduced of her mom, I actually was caught by surprise.
I was buying everything.
I was
everything
buying
the show
everything.
was selling. I was like, oh,
yes.
I'll buy it, because I was just taking in all the information, and I was just trying to understand this world that they were building. And we're back in time. We're in Nevada, and so all of it just felt very different. And so I had no idea until she found the birth certificate.
That was a big twist for the episode. I really thought that could have been a cliffhanger even. But they did it in the middle of the episode, and that changed, that literally flipped the show over for me.
Yeah.
In that sense, like, whoa, we already have a mystery here before all the other stuff going on. In that sense, and the acting there. I thought that whole scene of the reveal, I thought it was so powerful and so well played and acted. I just thought it was tremendous.
So good.
That to me was a big moment in the show.
Yeah, and I don't really follow too much of India Isley. I know she's been on a ton of other stuff, a lot of like teen dramas and that type of thing. But I thought she was she's what sold me, honestly, in the pilot. I love Chris Pine, but she was the one that sold me way more than Chris Pine did.
Yeah, let's talk about the actors here.
Yeah.
Because obviously Chris Pine is a big name. He's a big movie star, and you have him here leading a miniseries on TNT, a television show, which it's almost a big deal for them to have a guy of that nature, an actor of that nature, be a lead. But to me, India Isley is just as big of a star or lead of the show. I feel the show has two co-leads in a sense.
Yes.
In that way, but she, obviously the story centers on her, but I think to share the screen and kind of the credit with Chris Pine, she's handling it, holding it her own, and even exceeding that expectation, and kind of even becoming a bigger star than he is.
Totally. I think it's about how television has shifted. Obviously, TV is just, the quality is so good right now. There's just so much good television with like the streaming services and everything. So I think all of these big actors are moving towards TV. We've seen that in the last few years. And yeah, how incredible that she's holding her own with him and being such the star. I don't think she's ever been, I think in her career so far, what I've been researching, I think this is probably one of her bigger roles.
It is one of her bigger roles, for sure. But she just commands the screen.
I know, and those eyes.
Yes, those
eyes.
Those eyes are like literally everything.
Captivating.
Yeah, and I love how subtle she is, because in a lot of ways she plays this shy girl, kind of trying to discover herself.
Very
and
proper, yes ma'am, no ma'am, always. Yep.
And India Isley just owns it in a sense where not only do you believe her that she is this person, but it's so much strength and power comes from that too. This is a girl who's literally on her own, and in a way has no one, because she doesn't know her history. And then we reveal that her, in a sense, adopted mother has some issues too with alcohol and stuff, and
faking her own death.
Right. That was pretty hardcore, right?
Who does that?
I don't know.
And I felt for her too in that scene when you find out, because God forbid you think about what you would do in your own situation. I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Now she's alone. She's an orphan. Like, first she's adopted, then she finds out this, and it just felt
that was another twist.
Insane. And then she goes home and her mom's right there and laughing and cackling, and it's just like, wow, this girl's life is even more effed up than we even first imagined it to be.
Yeah, at that point, it's like, wow, so she's kind of playing me in that sense. So it gave her motivation to leave, I guess,
Definitely.
in that moment. So that worked with the storyline too.
Definitely. And she has a lot of bravery to her. Like, to get on a bus and go from Sparks, Nevada, all the way to Los Angeles, to leave what she knows, to make the cold call to her grandfather, George Hodel, in the first place. I mean, that takes courage. And so for her, you see her kind of growing up slowly, but taking these steps in the right direction, to become her own woman.
Let's twist over in a second to the other co-lead, Chris Pine playing Jay Singletary, right? So he's this reporter, obviously, who's down on his luck. The thing about that, where I really like this role for Chris Pine, is he has his charm too, but this is a very un-Chris Pine-like role in a sense where he's messy, he's a drunk, kind of a drug addict, guy that's got shambled life in every sense. And we usually see Chris Pine in like the handsome leading role, like the brave guy. Here he's a mess in so many, right? I mean, that's why I even said in the intro.
And he's a hot mess. So
I said he's not so piney in that sense, meaning that he's not so fine. Like, you can kind of see like the rugged side of Chris Pine, and we don't get to see that. I really like that he really took this role and, you know, didn't give the kind of standard thing we expect to see him. What did you feel about that? The different version of Chris Pine.
Oh, totally different. And I love, he's playing this troubled sort of journalist who's disgruntled about the work he's getting. He was in a morgue having to take pictures at one point. He locked himself in.
That was hilarious when he was like,
I was like, what is going on? So we get to see his own struggle, like Fauna. I keep wanting to call her Pat, since
I know.
she's basically two people.
Two people.
So like Fauna, we see him sort of struggling with his own identity. Like, who am I? What am I doing? We've all, I'm sure, felt that way at some point at a job or at some point in life, right? Like, what am I really working towards? Where's my career going? He clearly had this scandalous issue that is getting uncovered through his work at the newspaper. So we're sort of learning about why he's getting this kind of crappy work now. And so I think it's a really cool role for Chris Pine to take, because it is messy, and it is showing him in a different light, and it is showing him his character development, trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to solve this case, and how am I going to make my life better? And we do see him struggling with addiction, too.
Addiction, and there's another commentary on addiction. He almost hangs himself in that episode before that call. Like, that was another kind of a my God moment.
It's just like
that's the whole thing. This pilot really sold me. You have like an hour and you get multiple twists, plot twists and turns, multiple character reveals. I mean, when you make a pilot, literally this is what you'd be hoping for. Twists and turns and mystery, suspense, scene to scene. Like, literally they had me captivated at every scene where I was just waiting, literally with anticipation. Like,
I feel it right now. I'm
just like, that was me watching it. Like, what is going to happen? You know, there's good writing and good storytelling. And Patty Jenkins.
Come on,
We're
Monster, Wonder Woman, so many. I mean, she's incredible. She's a force. And she was the one that really did a lot of research about this and was the one that collaborated with TNT on the story. And so she didn't write it all herself, but she was a contributor. And she actually met with the real Fauna Hodel. And Fauna Hodel, unfortunately, she passed away, I think a year and a half ago.
Yeah, recently.
Recently. But Patty was able to meet with her and talk to her about her entire life story. And that's what was really the impetus of the show even starting.
We're going to get into the show and the story, the murder mystery and everything. But before that, tell all our fans what they should hear.
Yes, so if you guys are watching right now on YouTube, we want to make sure that you hit our thumbs up and subscribe. And if you're on iTunes, please give us a 5-star rating, because we love that so much. And no matter where you are, join the conversation. We want to hear from you, right? It's just us today, so we might as well hear your comments. So make sure you're following us on all of our social media and all of our channels. And we thank you guys so much for being part of our AfterBuzz family.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you guys anything to subscribe, comment, or give us a 5-star rating. We really appreciate it, enjoy it, and we like hearing from you. And we want to know all the fans out there for this show, especially, too. I'm hyped about it. You're definitely pumped up about it, too. You know, the story of the actual murder mystery, right? So this is we're in LA. This is a relevant local kind of long-time murder mystery that was unsolved in a lot of ways. How much did you know about this before watching the show? About that, we hear about the Black Dahlia, which is very kind of involved and weaved into this story. How much did you know about this story prior to the show?
The Hodel part of it, and I knew nothing. I came in blind, and I think that's why it captivated me so much. And I think that's the show's appeal, because it's going to appeal to people who kind of know the story a little bit, or even in depth know about the George Hodel and his whole Hollywood scene and him being this mysterious doctor who is accused of all of this stuff. And then you have people like me who didn't know anything, and I'm learning through the show, and I'm going back and doing more research, and I'm reading these Patty Jenkins interviews and finding out more about the story. And I'm captivated for both the show and the real life story.
It's a double thing.
It's a double thing.
I didn't know anything either. I've heard about the Black Dahlia before. I knew a little bit about that. There was a movie even made years ago. I think it was Josh Hartnett and Scarlett Johansson.
I think so.
Yeah. So I heard about that, but the whole George Hodel thing, I wasn't familiar at all. So for me, I was taking this in for the first time and was just captivated by it. But here's the thing. So I'm learning about the show while watching it. How tempted were you? I mean, obviously you mentioned you went to look it up yourself. I, on the other hand, refuse to do that.
Even now?
Yes.
Really?
I'm waiting for the show to end completely, and then I can look at it.
I'm one of those people, like, literally sometimes as a show's being aired, I'll be on my computer being like, oh my gosh.
You couldn't help yourself.
With the OJ stuff, like, even though I grew up in the 90s, I still was such a kid. I didn't even know about any of that stuff. So while I was watching all the true crime stuff about OJ, I was on my computer Googling and this and that and what was really happening. I love that. Because then I feel like my own detective.
You couldn't stop your curiosity.
For I Am the Night, I actually waited until after the second episode,
Okay.
and that's when I started diving in. So
I still haven't. I am following the show. I'm tempted. I am tempted to look it up because it's so fascinating. There's so many articles now that the show's out too. They're reemerging. But for me, I want to be with the show, literally episode to episode, and be stunned and shocked and compelled because I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea where it's going and leading us, and I'm literally living kind of moment to moment. And it's like having a Netflix show and not binging on it immediately. You know, you just kind of waiting.
You parse it out, but it's hard. It's so hard.
But I feel the satisfaction for me, at least, is going to be finding out at the end, and then I can solve the rest of my curiosity by looking it up after. I'm enjoying the show so much to the point that I love them telling me the story first.
Well, I love too with the show, I love the whole Chris Pine's world merging with Fauna's world, and that's the part that I'm interested in, is how are they going to weave these stories together and how are they going to connect these two people? Because a lot of the promos and previews for the rest of the limited series show them together.
Yeah, they're working together.
And they're working together to sort of solve this mystery. So I can't wait to see when they actually meet and what that conversation is going to be like.
We're 2 episodes in, and we have not seen them together yet. We've seen them close to each other. We're going to delve into that, how close they've gotten in the second episode, where he's following her and he's on her trail, but yet they don't make that connection.
So close, but so far.
For a 6-episode miniseries to not make that connection, I think I actually like that. They're building so much suspense and anticipation for that moment,
Definitely.
and it's such a big moment that for 2 episodes to go within 2 episodes and not have them connect, and you know how vital they are. I think that is really good writing, and it just heightens the anticipation. And now, going into the split storylines, like you mentioned, we have 2 storylines. We have Fauna's story, and then we have Jay's story. They're completely different stories. Like, every time you see them, you don't even see the connection there, but we know they are by little nuggets that we get. But there's 2 different lives going on there. How do you like the setup of the 2 different stories kind of paralleling each other, but very separate for the first 2 episodes?
I loved it. At first, it was a little bit jarring because I was going back and forth, and we were jumping a lot, jump cuts, and the cinematography of it was kind of jarring, which I think Patty Jenkins did on purpose. But I love it now because I am sort of solving the mystery along with Jay. So now I feel like I'm sort of like his co-detective, me and my laptop at home on my couch while I'm watching the show. I sort of feel like I'm with him following this mystery, and I'm learning about Fauna and Pat in the same way that he is. I mean, granted, obviously we see a little bit more of her side with the bird's eye view, but for the most part, I do feel like I'm following along with Jay, and I really like that.
So you're a Jay person in that sense. I like the Fauna aspect a little bit more. I do have a favorite in this, and I think we could pick favorites. I like Fauna's story because you see 2 different worlds. You see her from her world in Nevada, where it's kind of close-knit. That's all she knows. She's trying to fight for her identity, and until that point,
same life over and over
same
again.
life over, and then she just gets transformed literally over a few days, and she's in Los Angeles, and it's completely all she hasn't seen. She kind of grows up in a rural area, and then she comes to the big city in a way, and seeing these houses and like the
How
whole.
about when she was having lunch?
Yes, and she did not know.
She didn't know what fork to use. She didn't have the napkin on her lap. It's like this girl has never been in the upper echelon of society ever, and never even thought she had a right to be, which is the interesting part.
And that was that's cultural kind of thing. It's a culture shock, literally, to her, because this is a life she's never even been part of. But yet she's trying to assimilate to it.
I never thought she deserved to be a part of.
Deserved or even know in that sense. And when she found out, she still doesn't believe it.
Exactly.
She still doesn't believe that she's part of this, and that when her adopted mother tells her, like, well, you're going to be rich one day, when we hear that in the first episode, I don't think she's connecting with that at all. She doesn't believe it at all, and now through 2 episodes, that's still not clicking with her. That just kind of shows, like, the humble nature of Fauna, in a sense, and innocence that she has, that, people tend to, she's so polite and nice and just wants that truth so bad, she kind of lets people walk over her.
You feel for her, especially when she is meeting George's ex-wife, and they're going through this weird adventure where she's getting breadcrumbs of information, but not the real story.
And she's always diverting
Always diverting. And you can just feel at the end, she's just like, why? Like, tell me something. Like, I came all this way. I've worked so hard. Like, just give me anything. And then she is just diverging it. And then towards the end of the episode, we see her we're not sure if she really made this up about Fauna's father,
Yeah.
that he was this French ballet dancer and that he was in town for the night or whatever she said. And we sort of are like questioning everything all over again. Was Fauna's dad black? Was he this French white ballet dancer? And you see Fauna just start to reject that and just say, "You've given me nothing." And I'm so fed up
It's
with
the
this.
first time she stood up on
stood
the
up.
show. She really kind of took matters into her own hands and cut off the
Aside
BS.
from with her mom, but they were
Yeah.
they were problematic from the beginning. But yeah, exactly. It was the first time in this new LA world and with her new family that she was sort of rejecting them in a sense,
Yeah.
rejecting the story of like covering up her blackness.
Yeah. Do you buy the story that... How much of it did you buy? The French ballet dancer? Were you buying it or no?
I feel like I buy I'm like so gullible when it comes to the show. I feel like I'm buying everything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no way. Like, what a crazy twist. Is he really? And then when she rejected it, I was sort of like, okay, maybe I should side with Fauna. But I'm not quite sure. I still don't know.
I think there's a bit of truth to both. I think she might have a white father, but this French ballet dancer seems a little bit too far-fetched. So in that case, I'm like, I'm taking a little bit of each story, and probably there's the middle ground there. Or maybe it's both not true.
I have no idea. It's maybe she'll never know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because if she has no black father, it sort of negates her entire world before. It negates everything in Sparks, Nevada.
But she knows so much about that world, more so than the world she's supposedly supposed to be part of.
I completely agree.
That's a fascinating part, that she knows so much about that culture, the rural life, what it's like to be black, and kind of like multiracial in that sense too, and trying to deal with that, on a daily basis. There's the criticism she gets from her friends at school, and to hold that in so much and be part of who she is, and then completely have it flipped over. It's a lot to deal with.
It's a lot. She has a lot of pressure.
Yes.
And then let's add in these creepy kind of guys following her.
I know, what's up with that?
That's a weird theme in this limited series. We have the guy in the car. We don't quite know who he is yet, who's been following her across the country. I mean, literally all through Sparks, all the way to Los Angeles. We have Chris Pine, who plays Jay.
Now he's following her, right?
He's following her. We have this new, black kid from the party who's been calling, and I just think shady stuff is going to happen. He sounds like a bad dude.
Yeah.
My mom would never let me date someone like that. So
I don't think anyone should.
So I'm like, and then now we have, after she went to the museum, she has this new sort of character who is following her, the guy who was at the bus stop.
That's right.
And
Well,
so-
the bus stop guy, isn't that George Hodel? I mean, a doctor? I thought that was the Dr. George Hodel.
I thought it was, but then there was the other guy in the museum who got on the bus. So there's like 5 dudes.
Oh my goodness, this girl is just like
Poor girl.
She's alone, but she's really not alone
She's
at all.
not.
Everyone's,
She's like all these weird voyeurs, which makes the
She
show
doesn't know-
even creepier.
she doesn't know about any of them almost. That's
No,
the thing.
I don't think she knows about any of them. She just met this maybe George Hodel person, the
Yeah.
guy from the bus stop.
Yep. She recognized
At
him.
the very end, she recognizes him, but the guy on the bus, nope. The guy at the party, obviously she met, but
Yeah.
to be determined. And she doesn't know Jay yet, so there's a lot of people out for this girl, and
Who's
has
looking out for her?
no idea.
I mean, Jay is probably the only one that's actually got her best interest, or at least not. You don't think so?
I think he's still serving himself.
Oh, really?
I think he is so desperate to prove this cold case right that he will stop at nothing. And I think that she may become collateral. I don't know.
Oh, I think Jay has some
a far-out
redeeming
prediction,
qualities.
but-
We're going to go into predictions later on. But I think Jay has some redeeming qualities. I think he's a troubled guy, but I think when it comes down to it, when he's even seeking out his sources, I think there's this kind of a pride, but also a understanding and compassion that he has some of these people that he uses as sources in a sense. And him chasing this case is really, not only it's because a big case that he's been ruined career, but I think he wants to do the right thing. I think that's a big part of it when he talks to Leland Orser's character. When they talk about it, he really is so set on it because he feels that this guy's a bad guy, and that if it's not him that's going to get this story and figure it out, then no one will.
I agree.
And so I feel there's redeeming qualities. And when it comes to Fauna, I think he actually, once they kind of get to know each other, I think he will look out for her more so even in the story.
I hope so, because she needs somebody at this point.
She really does.
Girlfriend has no one.
Yeah.
I do agree with you, especially with Jay and the women in his life we've seen. So he has that weird encounter with an ex-lover, an ex-girlfriend, we're not really sure, who's like waiting for him.
Was a junkie, I think?
Junkie.
Yeah.
Clearly they had done drugs together in the past because she blames him for her own addiction. And so, but we see him treat her with empathy.
Yes.
I mean, not just, warm and fuzzy, snuggly, but...
Yeah, but doesn't take advantage of her.
He doesn't take advantage of her. He lets her sleep on the couch. He gives her money for the cab. He does not do drugs with her. He doesn't try to sleep with her. And so I do think we see him in a more sensitive place.
Yeah.
Because other than that, I feel like he's just been running around punching people,
yeah.
laying in
and
morgues,
getting dirt stories.
Stories, just a trashy, like, low-level journalist, who got ruined by some crazy big case. So it was nice to sort of see that. And I do hope that he helps Fauna and takes her under his wing and protects her. Because she's all alone.
She's in trouble in a lot of ways. Now, the one that's creating all the trouble, Dr. George Hodel. How creepy is he? I mean, I'm creeped out even thinking about him. He's one of those
now I'm creeped out.
Yeah, it's like one of those like horror characters. I mean, to think that this guy was real and went by as a gynecologist. Man, I don't know. And this happened, and he was like a celebrity favorite in a lot of ways back in the 60s. I don't know how you couldn't see this and the elaborate kind of lavish parties you see that he would throw. But
his house.
So like Eyes Wide Shut right? Like an underground kind of a cult. There's a very cultish feel about him.
Oh, completely. This guy is some ringleader of some weird underground Hollywood stuff. We got a taste for it at the end of the pilot when he answers the telephone and we see the sort of party scene going on. And then we got a taste for it again when he answers the phone, but we don't see his environment, but you can just hear it in his voice.
I know.
Like he knows he's in control. He knows he sort of owns people. He doesn't feel remorseful. You can feel in his voice. So it's very chilling.
Yeah, and to think about this guy and his connection to Black Dahlia murder and just the power that he had. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know the sort of extent and power he probably had and what celebrities that were visiting him or frequenting him. Who knows? Yeah, in his dungeon, literally. And what about those weird kind of like symbols that he has all over? That is just so creepy. It's that real creepy stuff that is not like a fake boogeyman sort of thing, but he's like a real boogeyman.
But that's the stuff that makes me think, like, is this really, does this still happen? Is this really happening? Because it's just so out there. But you hear these stories, especially in old Hollywood, of just these weird underground, like, kind of drug and sex-filled, parties and environments and music and all of the stuff. And so it makes me just wonder, like, what was that like to be living at that time?
If Fauna knew, she would be going east, not west to Los Angeles about that. To be connected to such a creep and wow.
She doesn't know he's creepy yet.
Yeah, that's the thing.
If anything, she feels just sad that he hasn't, pulled through on his end of the deal. He said, come to Los Angeles, I'd love to meet you. And she's like, I did all this work to get here. I really feel her struggle. I really relate to it because I feel like she's a hustler and she's just trying to do the best she can. And she, like all of us, she has a spirit inside of her wanting more and wanting better and wanting to know the truth. And so I think she feels gypped at this point, especially after the second episode. I think she's just like, seriously, this is what I came to LA for. I have
not
no
getting answers, right?
I'm probably out of all my bus money. I am with, my Black family, my mom's sister, my aunt,
extended
my cousins,
family,
and extended family. And you can tell that they have a good rapport, but she still is facing going back to her own existence, which she's clearly not happy about. So I think she feels really disappointed.
I feel so. How couldn't she be disappointed? She's not getting anything she's there for, and people are just like shoving her in every different direction.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned, these are the main characters. You have Fauna, you have Jay, you have
Hodel.
But then there's a lot of these side characters that reappear, like the guy that we see her following her all the time. What do you feel about these?
Who is that? Who dat?
Isn't he Hodel's like henchman or something? Like a guy that's like his spy? I'm guessing he's there to follow her. Is that the feeling you're getting so far?
But all the way in Sparks, Nevada, all the way in the beginning, has he been following her whole life? Did it just start? Is it just starting because her mom is sort of starting to finally lose it? So many questions that I need answered.
Do you think Hodel knew of her or was aware that she was like kind of looking for him before she came out to LA?
I think a man like Hodel knows everything.
I think that might be the truth right there.
How could he not, right? A man with all of his power and his little spies everywhere, seemingly so. We're not sure, but
Right.
seemingly so. So how could he not? And I feel like he was almost trying to be a step ahead by welcoming her to Los Angeles. How about that? How about he knew and tried to get ahead of it and then told her to come and then ghosted her?
That is deep. I've thought about that potentially, but now that you put it, that is so deep. And there's so many different angles going here.
So many. Which is why the show's so good, because it's so layered, it's so nuanced. And I love that we're unsolving all of the stuff every episode.
Yeah, no question about it. Anything else that you would, in this sense, that you didn't like seeing so far in these 2 episodes?
I would say in the pilot, like I said, it was a little jarring for me going back and forth between Jay and Pat's world. And I was more captivated initially by Pat and Fauna, by that environment than Jay's. But as Jay's getting deeper to me, and so I feel like I'm starting to share the love. But I was a little confused at first and just on this wild ride, and now I feel like better that I have solid footing. I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. Not everything, obviously,
Right.
but like I get the plan, I get the gist. I get that we're gonna converge now with these 2 stories, and I like knowing that.
Are you surprised there's no romantic angle yet? Usually we get some sort of romantic angle, but so far 2 episodes I haven't seen anything.
Well, Fauna had her sort of pseudo boyfriend.
But is
back
that
in
legitimate?
Sparks, Nevada. I mean, I think they cared for each other.
Potentially.
Potentially, didn't seem that deep, but clearly they cared for each other.
Right, she did.
And I wonder what's going to happen. There was a new guy at the party, so that might be interesting. Not the sort of creepy guy, but the other gentleman who was friends with Fauna's cousin. So maybe there's something there, and maybe there'll be some sort of cousin rivalry because her aunt was saying that she wanted her daughters to marry one of them to marry him. So maybe there's something there. And I think as Fauna discovers Los Angeles, that'll invite a whole host of characters to come into her life.
Are you afraid for Fauna in Los Angeles? That's the question.
Am I what?
Afraid for Fauna in Los
I'm afraid
Angeles.
for this girl always.
Unreal.
It's just too much. I just don't know how I guess it's because she doesn't even know how much bad danger is out there, and we do. So I think that's why we're on pins and needles, just watching out for her. But I feel very protective about her already.
Yeah, she seems like a sister we're looking out for, right?
Definitely. I definitely have her back, and I'm on her side. Out of anyone in the show, I'm on Fauna's side.
How do you think this current thing we're seeing is going to connect to that Black Dahlia thing? Ooh. We haven't heard much or any connection at this point about the Black Dahlia. It's a backstory in a sense.
Yeah, it's a backstory. I think we'll learn more about that through Jay, through his own research. I think maybe he'll have conversations with people and we'll find out more about his involvement with that case or what happened. And I think that with Hodel, that will sort of reveal itself too with the question is, I wonder if I Am the Night will have a stance on whether Hodel was definitely involved or not. So I wonder if they'll tiptoe around it or if they'll have a stance of this guy was involved in some shady stuff.
That's a good point. How do you feel so far through 2 episodes they're going about it? Are they taking sides or is it one-sided?
I definitely think we're leaning towards Fauna's side of things, especially with the backstory, some tea about her the real life Fauna talking to Patty Jenkins and telling her story. So inherently, Patty Jenkins I don't think she interviewed George Hodel. So
hopefully not.
You know what I mean? So she has this one-sided sort of viewpoint on things. And Fauna, when she was living, wrote an autobiographical novel about her life. So I think there's a lot of history and sort of references to draw from on the Fauna side. And I don't know as much about Hodel and who sort of had his back and was saying that he wasn't guilty. So it'll be interesting to see how they paint that. What do you think?
I think at that point, yes, it should be Fauna's story because it's kind of about her in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and Jay, I think, is going to be on her side.
Yeah,
so.
and it's Jay's story too in some ways, but it's about Fauna and this family apparently that she's part of. Hopefully not, but it's her story, and I think it's really kind of dedicated to her in a lot of ways. Maybe we'll find out at the end of the season more about that, but it just seems like it is her point of view that we're going on. And it should be her point of view.
Definitely. I think a theme, too, with Fauna is the idea that life is not what it seems, and maybe the grass isn't always greener. I think that's a very human thing, right? We always are saying, oh, the grass is greener and I want this and I want that. She thought her life was terrible in Sparks, Nevada. I think LA will show her that this new family and the family that she thought was better may not be what it seems.
Do you think she will prefer life back in Nevada? That's the better life for her? Or this life of more answers now, that's ultimately going to be more satisfactory?
To be determined. I think she'll appreciate her life back in Sparks in a way that she never thought possible without getting out of it, without seeing it for what it is. Very safe, very communal, even though she has problems, even though her mom has very troubled issues.
She does.
And the race stuff is very difficult to deal with, especially being a mixed race child. But I do think that when she finally meets Jay, I think she's gonna develop into this crazy badass woman, and I think she's gonna find her own power and realize that she can do even more than she ever thought she could.
So Jay's gonna be that calming influence in a sense, and the one to get her kind of open up.
I think so, and I think he's gonna give her the kick that she needs to get some answers and knock on some doors, take some names. Maybe I'm turning it out of true crime and into some action movie or something.
Well,
but I do think it's gonna turn up. Sure.
We have 2 episodes in, and a lot more still to go.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more truth to be found out.
Definitely.
Now, we do have a special segment,
Yay,
everyone.
I love special segments.
Ooh. I like the setup.
Me too.
So, I'm thinking this for our special segment. Obviously, we're getting kind of the story of the Black Dahlia and this murder mystery. What is your favorite kind of murder mystery story, unsolved one, or any story that fascinates you?
Okay, I did love Me Some OJ, especially rediscovering it. But something that really stuck out to me because I grew up with it, JonBenet Ramsey.
Ooh,
and I
yes.
know that's so high profile and it's so sort of insane, but the story, it's like you have this child doll, and then you have these weird parents involved, and you have this media speculation. No one really knows what happened. How could we not know at this point with DNA evidence?
Yes.
It just seems too crazy to me that it's still unsolved and there's not a closed case to it. And I just think it has the same sort of things as in this story of this little girl who has no idea of the world that she's even involved in, and life is bigger than she even knows about.
Such a good point. Mine is the Amityville murder story. It's more solved, but what caused it? What possessed them? To go, was there...
That scares me.
There's been so many movies done on it, and the part of it is just what happened? Was there a spiritual force that made them commit all these murders? And it's still kind of unsolved in so many ways. A family was killed, but what were the spirits that they called out that caused it all?
That freaks me out because it's not you can't just lock up a ghost. You can't put a spirit in jail.
No, you cannot.
I just feel that's the one that gives me chills because it's just if those spirits did it one time, they can do it again, right?
I would say so. So hopefully no one's
so
reading
creepy.
those chants or anything that brings it up. Stay away from the Ouija boards. All that stuff is creepy and scary.
I could never. Have you ever done a Ouija board?
No.
I would never. I would never.
No
I'm
chance.
curious to see what people watching would do. Leave us a comment about that. But I'm way too scared. Way too scared to ever do that.
No chance. I'm staying away. I don't know why they even sell them. I heard they sold them in toy stores. Ugh. Creepy.
No, creepy.
More creepier than George Hodel in that sense. So now we are going to end things with our prediction segment.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Okay. What's your prediction going forward?
Okay, I think Jay comes into Fauna's life. I think that they find George Hodel, and I think that we uncovered George Hodel potentially being involved with the Black Dahlia.
I like that. I think there will be definitely a confrontation between George Hodel and Fauna. That's going to come full circle. I think Jay is going to be that righteous guy, and he's going to help Fauna along the way, and they'll finally put away George Hodel at the end. He's going to get his justice due.
I hope so. I also wonder if Chris Pine's character Jay is going to make it through this series.
Ooh.
He may be collateral.
Interesting. There are more
and
twists.
I
Hey,
wonder.
this show's had plenty of twists so far, so there's plenty more I guarantee you expect along the way. That's something to look out for sure.
Absolutely.
More twists. I can see that happening for sure. Will Jay be good? Will he turn bad? Is Fauna on her own? Or is Fauna gonna step up her game? We'll see all that more.
Yes.
Where can people find you on social media? Or...
You guys can find me at Anna K. Thomas, ANNAKAY Thomas, on all social media.
And you can find me at the Jim Alexander on all social media at realtalker.com. That's REEL. Check out some of my stuff there. And I have a review of I Am the Night Pilot. So if you want to read that one, check it out. I love the show. We seem to be so awesome into it. Be back next week for us. We will have reviews of episode 3 and 4 next week.
Yes.
Send your comments to us. We want to read them. We want to hear your thoughts on it. This is an awesome show. So keep on watching it with us and joining on the conversation.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Take care.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.